Hey guys, Paul here, U.S. Army combat veteran, and today we are going to be breaking down how and what is Israel's Iron Dome. Let's get into it.
The ongoing conflict in Israel has featured recurring images like this: missiles streaming across the sky and exploding midair. These are missiles from Israel's Iron Dome missile defense system, a land-based system that intercepts.
Okay guys, let's talk a little bit about what is a missile, what is a rocket, and what is this system. So, one, the term rocket refers to anything with a rocket engine and any kind of payload. So, for example, Elon Musk's SpaceX launches rockets, right? A missile, in contrast, is a weapon. That is something that's powered by a rocket engine, has some kind of guidance to get it to a target, and of course has a weapon payload. That can be conventional explosives, it can be a nuclear missile, it can even be a biological or chemical weapon. So what does Hamas use in this conflict? Well, they use a conventional type of missile that is basically unguided. It's guided only by physics, only by its trajectory and the wings that stabilize it. And so it's actually quite hard for groups like Hamas that use these so-called dumb missiles to hit really precise targets, right? They have to sort of aim it, and they have to kind of do a little bit of physics and ballpark where these missiles are going to land. That means that they can't hit really precise targets. They can't, for example, hit an individual factory or an individual military formation. Instead, they have to go after large area targets. This might be a big Israeli military base. This could even more commonly be targets that are so big they're cities. So that is the impetus to develop the Iron Dome, and of course other anti-missile systems.
Intercepts and destroys short-range rockets and mortars. It has become a bedrock of the country's defense since its introduction in 2011. And in the current round of hostilities, Israel's military said the system has intercepted more than 200 of the more than 1,000 rockets fired towards Israel as of May 12th.
Okay, so here's a little bit of commentary on the nature of these anti-ballistic missile systems. The first missiles were developed in the Second World War, and these looked a lot like what Hamas uses today. Very simple, crude guidance systems, and you just kind of had to ballpark where they were going to land. And they carried conventional explosives. Now, in the Cold War, missile technology escalated really quickly. And by the 1960s, the Soviet Union and the US had developed what are called intercontinental ballistic missiles. These are missiles that are so powerful. One, they carry a powerful nuclear payload, so capable of destroying entire cities. Second, they're rockets so large that they were able to launch into space, come down, and re-enter the atmosphere on the other side of the world, right? Literally from the US to Russia or Russia to the United States. And the problem when you have a warhead that's entering the atmosphere from space is it goes really fast, unbelievably fast. And it was almost impossible in the 1960s to have any technology that could track a warhead moving so fast that's so small in the grand scheme of the entire sky. But that didn't stop the US and Russia from working tirelessly to develop these types of anti-missile systems. When you talk about rockets like what Hamas is firing, these are going much slower. And it's much easier for even advanced computers to track them and then send another explosive out to intercept them.
Here's how the complex detection and interception system works. The system is powered by missile defense batteries, each containing 3 main components. These batteries can defend across short-range rocket and mortar attacks within almost 45 miles of the battery. They are also mobile, so they can be moved to where they are needed. First, a radar unit detects an incoming rocket and relays information about its speed and trajectory to the battery's control center. The control center's computers calculate if the rocket is going to hit populated areas. If it is, a missile is fired from the launcher. Each launcher contains 20 interceptor missiles. Each receives constant guidance updates from the control center and its internal radar. The missile destroys the incoming rocket by exploding near it. The goal is to do this far away from populated areas.
So here's what's interesting is that a missile-based anti-missile system is the one we used in the Iron Dome, but the U.S. military actually uses other systems to protect bases in Afghanistan, which also receive mortar and rocket attacks, and even protect ships that are also in danger of missile attacks. These actually often use projectile rounds. They literally just fire a hail of very powerful bullets at, usually when I was in Afghanistan, it would be mortars, and will just explode those mortars in just a cloud of lead. But you can't really do that, right, when you're talking about missiles that are tens of thousands or thousands of feet in the air. The first time that you really saw this kind of anti-missile system widely publicly deployed was in the first Gulf War. As you may recall, Saddam Hussein in that war had these very dangerous missiles called Scud missile systems, and they were, again, large, powerful. They were able to be shot, not across continents, but certainly across countries. And there was real fear that Saddam would try to use his Scud missiles to attack Israel and turn what was supposed to be the international community against Iraq into a Israel versus the Middle East type of conflict. So the U.S. deployed its Patriot missile systems, one of the earliest anti-missile systems developed, and was able to effectively shoot down a number of Scud missiles. Now, there's still some controversy over exactly how effective Patriot missile batteries were, because as you can see, the Iron Dome, right, relies incredibly on very precise radar and very, very high-tech computer systems that allow these missiles to dial in precisely on not just the rocket's location, but remember, that missile needs to know where the rocket is going to be. Or the missile. I assume these are all missiles, right? I guess it's possible that Hamas would shoot like unarmed rockets, maybe. Anyway, it's really hard to get a computer so precise. And remember, it's got to also talk between the radar, the computer system, and the missile itself. All three need to be constantly updating each other millisecond by millisecond to figure out where the rocket is, where it will be, and when the defensive missile will be close enough to effectively explode. It's really hard, and it's a really hard technical problem to solve, even with comparatively slow-moving rockets like what Hamas fires.
Yes, minimizing damage on the ground. The defense system has intercepted over 2,400 rockets bound for civilian areas since its launch in 2011, according to an Israeli military spokesperson. During a conflict in 2012, the Iron Dome knocked down 421 rockets launched from Gaza and bound for Israeli cities before a November ceasefire. And during the 2014 war in Gaza, it intercepted 700 rockets fired by Islamist movement Hamas, a 90% success rate that effectively blunted the Palestinian group's aerial threat. The United States has provided hundreds of millions of dollars in funding for the system, and has also bought and is testing 2 Iron Dome batteries of its own.
What's interesting is that the US and Russia actually agreed at one point in the late Cold War that they would not develop anti-ballistic missile systems. Sounds sort of counterintuitive, right? Why would you not want a system that defends against the greatest threat to humanity, the nuclear-armed ballistic missile? And the answer was, the fear was that one side would get too close to succeeding, right? Let's say that Ronald Reagan's Star Wars plan, a dramatic anti-ballistic missile shield system, succeeded. And he was about to unveil this perfect 100% success rate anti-ballistic missile system that would make the United States totally immune to ballistic missiles, which, as we've just heard, isn't the case, right? Even the best system in the world, the Iron Dome, fighting the crudest possible rockets, Hamas's kind of homemade rockets, they still have 1 in 10 rockets get through. if you could create such a perfect system, what would it do to your arsenal of ICBMs? They would become use it or lose it technology, right? As soon as the president flicked it on the switch of establishing that perfect shield, right, your entire arsenal of ICBMs are scrap. And so the fear that both sides had was that if one person could develop that perfect shield first, that the other side would immediately launch a preemptive strike before that shield could become operational, or else their arsenal would become worthless. And remember, if the other side has a perfect shield, then there's nothing to stop them from throwing that first blow, launching their first strike of nuclear weapons. So that was the fear that both sides had, and so they agreed that in fact they would preserve mutually assured destruction by not developing anti-ballistic missile systems.
And Israel has expanded the defense system by installing missile batteries on ships, and the system is in the midst of being upgraded to combat the threat posed by unmanned drones. As the current conflict continues, so will the use of the Iron Dome.
All right, guys, that was pretty cool. Be sure to hit subscribe. Be sure to check out my second channel, my merch store. And let me know if there's other cool videos of the Iron Dome. I think this is such a neat technology. And I gotta say, for all the questionable things that both sides do in this conflict, the Iron Dome is something that protects innocent civilians from harm, and there's almost no way you could be opposed to something like that. So until next time, I see you guys later.